All right, so we're diving into the Mughal Empire today,
Yeah.
and you've brought some pretty fascinating sources.
Yeah, we've
It
got
looks like 1526 to 1857.
right. That's the period we're looking at.
Wow,
Quite a significant chunk of Indian history.
that is a pretty big chunk of time.
It is, and it really did profoundly reshape India.
Okay,
Not just the politics, but art, architecture, even the social fabric.
right.
And to get a good view, a multifaceted view, I've pulled from a few different scholarly texts.
Okay, let's hear it.
So we've got a concise history of modern India, architecture of Mughal India, and one that I think you'll find particularly interesting is an agrarian history of South Asia.
Okay, so I'm looking at these sources,
Yeah.
and there's something that really pops out to me. It says that even the Hindu nobility
Oh, yeah.
were incorporating Mughal architectural styles.
That's right.
So that kind of shows how widespread the influence was.
It really does. You don't see that every day, right? Culture sort of borrowing and blending like that. It speaks volumes about how far their cultural reach extended.
Yeah.
But before we get too deep into that, let's rewind a bit,
Okay.
all the way back to the beginning. Did you know that the Mughals actually traced their lineage back to Timur and Genghis Khan?
Oh, wow. Yeah, now those are some big names.
Yeah, you're talking about a heritage that's rooted in conquest,
Right.
military strategy, and it really did shape their whole approach.
Mm.
Everything from the way they structured their administration to their artistic preferences.
Right.
You can see these Central Asian influences woven into the very fabric of the empire.
Okay, so how did this dynasty end up ruling India?
Well, it all starts with Babu,
Wabu.
the founder of the Mughal Empire in India.
Yes.
Back in 1526, he conquered Delhi,
Oh, wow.
which was, talk about a dramatic entrance.
Yeah.
It really marked a turning point in Indian history, that moment.
So was it smooth sailing from there?
Not exactly.
Okay.
Imagine trying to establish an empire in a place like India, with all its existing rulers and complex power dynamics, right?
Of course.
The early Mughals, they faced their share of challenges.
Yeah.
Internal conflicts, resistance from other Indian rulers. It was a constant struggle to maintain their foothold.
So even with a family tree like that, it wasn't a walk in the park.
Absolutely not. It took military skill,
Right.
strategic alliances, a really deep understanding of how things worked in the Indian political landscape.
So it sounds like they had their work cut out for them
They did.
from the very beginning.
They did. And speaking of influential rulers, there's one figure we can't overlook.
Okay, who's that?
Akbar the Great. His reign, 1556 to 1605, was a real turning point for the Mughals.
Akbar, I've definitely heard that name before.
Oh, yeah.
What made him so great?
Well, he was brilliant on the battlefield, no doubt about that.
Okay.
He expanded the empire significantly, really solidified their control.
Wow.
But what set him apart, I think, were his administrative reforms, his vision for the empire.
So he wasn't just about conquering.
No, and, perhaps most notably, his policy of religious tolerance.
Religious tolerance.
Yeah.
That's pretty forward-thinking, especially for that era.
It was revolutionary, really. He understood that to rule such a diverse population,
Yes.
you needed a different approach.
Right.
He abolished the jizya,
What's that?
the tax on non-Muslims,
Oh, okay.
and actively encouraged dialogue between different faiths.
Wow.
He even tried to create a new faith, actually, Dinilahi.
A whole new faith.
Yeah, incorporating elements from different religions.
It sounds like he was thinking outside the box.
He was a visionary, not just a ruler.
Yeah.
He saw the potential for harmony amidst all that diversity, and he
Yeah.
actively pursued it.
So what about their architecture?
Oh, you're talking about iconic structures, right?
Yeah, it's world famous.
Rightfully so.
Yeah.
It's a style that blends Persian, Indian, even Timurid traditions.
Okay.
It's grand, intricate, incredible craftsmanship. And these buildings aren't just beautiful, they tell a story
Okay.
about cultural fusion, the vision of these emperors. Take Fatehpur Sikri, for example.
Fatehpur Sikri, I've seen pictures.
Yeah.
It's that amazing city Akbar built, right?
Exactly. It was a
Right.
planned city showcasing his vision for a diverse, flourishing society.
So it was more than just conquering. It was about creating a new society.
Precisely.
Wow.
The Mughals, they weren't just about military might.
Right.
They were a cultural force, and they left a mark on India that's still visible today.
Not just the architecture.
Not just the buildings. No,
Yeah.
their influence is everywhere. Art, literature, even cuisine.
Okay, so we've got Babur, we've got Akbar, we've
What-
got some pretty incredible buildings.
Yeah.
So what else can these sources tell us about life during the Mughal Empire?
Well, we've really just scratched the surface to
Right.
really understand the impact of the Mughal Empire.
Yeah.
We need to dig into the social structures, the economic systems, how everyday life was affected by these rulers from Central Asia.
And it sounds like they were pretty good at running an empire.
They were masters of administration.
Right.
They put systems in place that were, in many ways, ahead of their time.
So what can we learn from these sources about their social and economic structures?
Well, that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
You see, the Mughal Empire was a melting pot of cultures and ideas,
Okay.
and the social hierarchy, the economic policies, the cultural exchanges,
Yeah.
all of that left a lasting legacy that's worth exploring in detail.
All right, I'm ready to dive in.
Let's do it. Let's start with something that might surprise you.
Okay.
The Mughal Empire, even though they were known for their military,
Right.
they really, really put a huge emphasis on managing their finances.
So it wasn't all just about, battles and expansion?
Not at all. They were smart.
Okay.
They knew a strong empire needed a solid economic foundation.
That makes sense.
And they came up with this system. It was called Zabit.
Zabit.
It was a land revenue system,
Mhm.
super detailed. They did these land surveys and assessments.
Wow.
Imagine they kept these meticulous records
Okay.
of land holdings, agricultural output, all to make sure the money kept flowing.
So they were really organized.
Yeah, they were.
So was it just about collecting as much tax as possible?
No, it was more about sustainability.
Okay.
They wanted to make sure the system was fair, so they tied the taxes to how productive the land was.
So if you had good land,
Exactly.
but paid more.
Yeah, and that meant the revenue they collected, they could use that to fund big projects.
Like what?
Well, they had a powerful army to maintain.
Right.
The empire was constantly growing.
Of course.
So it was strategic, you know?
Yeah, it sounds like they were really thinking ahead.
Absolutely. And this system, it wasn't static, it kept evolving,
Okay.
adapting to the needs of the empire.
So it wasn't just like set in stone.
No, and it also led to the development of a whole class of revenue officials.
Oh, interesting.
Really skilled administrators. They kept everything running smoothly.
It sounds like they were building a very well-organized state.
Yeah, very complex, very well organized.
And what about trade? I know the sources mention that.
Oh yeah, trade flourished under the Mughals.
Okay.
They had these networks
Yeah.
that connected India to the wider world.
So they were already participating in like a global economy.
Oh yeah, they were way ahead of the curve in that sense. And they
Oh.
were successful too. India was known for its textiles, spices, precious stones.
All the good stuff.
Yeah, stuff everyone wanted all over Asia, Europe.
So it's been a pretty exciting time.
Cities like Surat, Agra, Lahore. Imagine them bustling with merchants from all over.
Oh, wow. So many different cultures coming together.
Exactly, a real crossroads.
I bet the marketplaces were amazing.
And think about the impact on the culture.
Right.
You had all these people coming in from Persia, Arabia, even Europe,
Yeah.
bringing their ideas, their art, their styles.
That explains why Mughal art and architecture is so diverse.
Precisely, it's this fascinating blend of tradition and innovation.
Okay, but what about the everyday people?
Good question.
How did all of this affect them?
Well, the Mughal Empire had this complex social hierarchy.
Like most empires, I guess?
Right, you had the emperor at the top,
Of course.
then the nobility, religious leaders, and then the common people.
So where did the Mughals themselves fit into this hierarchy? I mean, they weren't from India, right?
They were at the top, of course, the ruling class.
Right.
But they were smart about it. They
Wow.
didn't just try to overturn the existing social order. They incorporated the local elites.
Smart move.
Right. Kept things running smoothly.
So were there any tensions between the Mughals, being Muslim, and the majority Hindu population?
I mean, there were definitely periods of conflict,
Of course.
but overall, the Mughals, especially Akbar,
Right.
they understood that maintaining a balance between the different religious communities was key.
Yeah, it sounds like they had a pretty pragmatic approach to governing.
They did, and you can see that reflected in the Mughal court.
Okay.
It was this incredible mix of cultures and traditions.
Yeah.
The nobility, they played a crucial role,
Okay.
administering the empire, keeping the social order.
Right.
But even within the nobility, you had people from all different backgrounds, religions, ethnicities.
Wow. So it really was a melting pot.
It was. What about the Brahmins? You've heard of them, right?
Yeah, they were the priests, right, in Hindu society?
Exactly. They continued to hold positions of respect and influence.
Okay.
They were scholars, advisors, teachers. They kept the Hindu traditions alive.
So it wasn't a complete destruction of the existing order?
No, the Mughals, they adapted, incorporated what was already there.
They sound like they were pretty skilled rulers.
They were. They knew how to balance asserting their authority with working within existing systems.
To keep things stable?
Right. But that's not to say there weren't challenges.
Right, like we talked about earlier, the early Mughals faced a lot of resistance.
Exactly. And managing an empire that vast, it was bound to be difficult, even during Akbar's reign.
Which was considered a golden age.
Right. Even then, there were rebellions, conflicts. It's a reminder that no empire, no matter how strong, is immune to problems.
So what were some of those pressures?
Well, the decline of the Mughal Empire, it was a slow process.
Okay.
Over a century, a lot of factors came into play.
So what were some of the key things that led to their downfall?
Well, after Akbar died, succession disputes started happening more and more.
Oh, so fighting over who would be the next emperor.
Exactly. And those rivalries within the court, they weakened the central authority.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It drained their resources.
Problems from within.
Right. And as they weakened internally, the regional powers, they started to see an opportunity.
Like who?
The Marathas in the west, the Sikhs in the north, they all wanted power, independence.
So the Mughals were losing control.
Bit by bit, yeah.
And then there's the British East India Company.
Ah, yes.
They must have played a role.
Oh, they were a big factor.
Okay. At first, they were just a trading company. Right. But they saw how weak the Mughals were becoming.
Yeah.
And they took advantage.
No.
They formed alliances with the regional powers.
They were playing both sides.
In a way, yeah. And they started their own military campaigns.
Wow.
They chipped away at Mughal control piece by piece.
Until they were the ones in control.
It's a classic story, an empire crumbling from within while outsiders seize the opportunity.
Sad, but it happens a lot in history.
It does. It shows how power can shift, how history is constantly changing.
So even in decline, the Mughals left a legacy.
Oh, absolutely.
That's what's so fascinating to me.
It's not just ancient history.
Right.
It's still part of India today.
You can see their influence everywhere.
You can, in the architecture, the food, the languages, the social customs, it's all there.
So from Babur to Akbar, from incredible buildings to complex social structures.
To their eventual decline, yeah.
It's been a really amazing look at this period. It has. And, it's amazing how this dynasty from Central Asia, they not only conquered all this territory, but they transformed India's cultural landscape forever.
A legacy that's still felt centuries later.
It's a story that's both impressive and thought-provoking, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It makes you think about the lasting impact of empires.
Yeah.
The legacies they leave behind.
Right.
How they continue to shape the world we live in, even today. It's a question worth thinking about.
Definitely.
As we look back on history and try to understand how the past influences our present.
So we've covered the rise and fall of this empire. But, what does it all mean for India today? Why should we care about something that happened so long ago?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Connecting the dots between then and now. You see, the Mughal period, it wasn't just a blip on the radar.
Right.
It had a lasting impact, a profound impact that you can still see and feel in India today.
Okay, so what are some of the most obvious ways that Mughal influence is still felt?
Well, just look around. I mean, the architecture is probably the most obvious one, right?
Right.
You see the Taj Mahal, the Red Fort, all those mosques and tombs and palaces. It's all Mughal.
Yeah, you're right.
That blend of grandeur and detail, it's become a symbol of India itself.
True. They're not just old buildings.
Yeah.
They're part of the landscape, the culture.
Exactly. And it goes beyond the physical structures too, right?
In what way?
It's about the cultural fusion. Remember all that trade?
Yeah, bringing people and ideas from everywhere.
Exactly. The Mughal Empire was like this giant melting pot. And you can see that reflected in everything. The art, the music, literature, even the food in India today.
I'm thinking of those Mughal miniature paintings, so detailed.
Oh, yeah.
And the gardens, those amazing gardens.
The gardens, don't forget those. Yeah. They're like these living works of art.
Right.
All those water features, the geometric layouts, pure Mughal aesthetics.
And the language, Urdu.
Oh, yeah, Urdu. It developed during the Mughal period. It's like this mix of Persian, Arabic, and Hindi. A real testament to that cultural exchange.
Wow, it's incredible how a period in history can have such a long-lasting impact on culture.
It is.
But didn't the Mughal Empire also leave a political legacy?
Absolutely. They established a centralized system of administration
Okay.
that in many ways laid the groundwork for how India is governed today. They were very forward-thinking in terms of revenue collection, record keeping, maintaining this complex bureaucracy.
So some of the systems in place in India today are based on what the Mughals did.
Yeah, you could definitely say that.
Wow.
And their revenue collection methods, for example, they were adopted by later rulers, even the British.
It's like these threads of history running through everything.
That's a great way to put it. But it's not all sunshine and roses, right? I mean, there must have been some negative aspects to the Mughal Empire.
Right. You're absolutely right. We can appreciate the beautiful buildings, the art, and all that.
Right.
But we can't ignore the complexities.
There were definitely periods of religious conflict, power struggles, all the things that come with empires.
I mean, even during Akbar's reign, there were tensions with regional power spread.
Exactly, and we have to understand those complexities to really get a complete picture. History is never black and white.
Yeah, good point. So the Mughal Empire, like any other historical period, had its ups and downs.
For sure.
But it's clear that its influence on India is huge.
There's no doubt about it.
It's been a really eye-opening deep dive. I'm kind of amazed by how complex and rich this era was.
Me too. And, it's just the tip of the iceberg.
What do you mean?
There's still so much to discover, the everyday lives of people, the politics, the art, how the Mughals affected different parts of India.
It sounds like a lifetime of study.
It could be, yeah. But that's the fun part, isn't it? Always something new to learn.
I think this deep dive gave us a great starting point for understanding the Mughal Empire.
Absolutely.
I know I'm definitely interested in learning more.
Well, that's what we hope for.
And to our listeners, if you're as fascinated by this period as we are, don't stop here.
Keep exploring.
Keep asking questions. And until next time, keep those minds curious.